Welcome to Fairview Baptist Church in Lindsay. Not only do we want to minister to the people who regularly attend Fairview, but we also want to minister to those who live within the city of Kawartha Lakes with the good news of Jesus Christ. Come on in and join us for worship. It is our prayer that you'll be blessed.
Thank you for the worship team. You guys work hard, and you bless the socks off us. Thank you. Pastor John has been taking us on a series, thinking and feeling with God through the Psalms. And it's kind of interesting because we know that God thinks. That surrounds us. We know that. We've been taught that. But some of us aren't aware that God feels. And He does. Some of us, particular men, have trouble with feelings. We're not touchy-feely types. In other words, we're handicapped. Our wives try to push us around in the wheelchairs of life. And we don't get it that we're missing something. But God made us emotional creatures, and that's part of life. And He asked me to end this series. This is a tremendous privilege. And He gave me Psalm 23. It doesn't get better than that. The most well-known psalm round the world in every language. And I challenge you to remember right now, if you can, the first time you heard those words and learned them. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. For some of you, that becomes ancient and medieval history. That's a long time ago. And we love it. We love those words. They mean something to us. But just a minute. What do we really know about shepherds? Are there shepherds in Canada? I mean, yeah, we have farmers who have sheep. But they wouldn't call themselves shepherds. They put them out in a pasture, surrounded by a fence, and they expect the sheep to look after themselves. That's not a shepherd. How many of us have met a real live shepherd? We had one in the first service. How many have really talked to a real live shepherd? Found out what being a shepherd's all about? Most of us haven't a clue. We haven't a clue what it's like to be like a shepherd, let alone a shepherd in biblical times. So we love to say, the Lord is my shepherd. We really don't know what it means, but we like the sound of it. We had an interesting scripture reading. Same passage read with a different emphasis. The first time was on the Lord, and the second time was on us. You have to remember when you read Psalm 23, He's the shepherd. We're the sheep. And when it comes to animals, there's not many animals dumber than sheep. All right? We like the fact that He's our shepherd. We have a hard time being His sheep. So to get to know something about it, you have to move. And early in the 90s, my wife and I went to Israel on one of those tour groups. And about the 8th day, we ended up at Masada. I don't know if you've ever been on a tour group, but by the 8th day, I'm grouped out. So when we got to Masada, most of the crowd went up to the northeast corner where all the ancient ruins, the mosaics are fantastic. They're all there. But I wasn't into it. So I headed off to the south side where there's nothing. And I just stared across the gorge to the desert across the way, seeing nothing, thinking nothing, just tired out, wanting to be alone. And when I got there, I saw this black thing on the horizon. It looked like the top half of a black basketball. And it was bouncing up and down as if it was being dribbled by an invisible hand. And I couldn't figure out what this thing would be. So I stared at it. And it came a bit closer, and that's what it looked like. And I didn't have any idea what it was. But as it came closer, I saw that it was a Bedouin. Not one sitting on the ground, but riding on a camel. Bouncing up and down. And I couldn't figure out why it was there. Because it was desert. I couldn't figure out where it had come from. I couldn't figure where it was going to. Couldn't figure out what it was all about until I saw a bunch of sheep and goats following the shepherd. And I'm looking at this, kind of dazed and stunned, not really taking it in. And it was as if somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Bell, look closer. You're not seeing what I brought you here to see. Look." And I looked. And all of a sudden it hit me. There's not a fence in sight. Can you imagine farming in Canada without fences? How many millions miles of fences do we have coast to coast in Canada? We put the animals out in the field and we let them look after themselves. Oh, we check up on them from time to time. And these animals, they're free to take off and go wherever they want. There is nothing. There's not a fence. There's not a leash. There's not a rope. There is nothing making them follow the shepherd. Why do they follow him? Because he was there when they were born. The first human hands that ever touched these sheep were his hands. When they came into the world, it was the shepherd that gave them a name and called them by name, and they got used to his voice. If they were sick and needed a vet, he was the vet. And every single day of their lives, he made sure they found pasture. He made sure they found quiet waters. He looked after them. Do you understand why they follow him? They're his pets. There is a relationship between the shepherd and the sheep. They're in love with each other. Can you imagine farming like that in Canada? So we come to Psalm 23. It's a beautiful psalm. And it reminds us of what we get when we get a shepherd. I think the psalm was born this way. David was out looking after his father's flock one day, and he's just a few fields away from Bethlehem, his home. And all the buddies he's played with are back home playing baseball. Now, I know they didn't play baseball in the New Testament. They're playing whatever was the equivalent. and they're having a good time and they're yelling. He can hear it. But he's stuck looking after his father's dumb sheep. And he's feeling a bit sorry for himself. And he thinks about all the things he has to do for a sheep. And then he starts to think, well, I wish I had somebody to do that for me. And then it hits him. The Lord's my shepherd. And out of his young mind come these words that many of us know by heart. When we get a shepherd, we get a shepherd who lays us down all the ways. I will make you lie down. Now, I don't know about you, but there's something in me that just says, I won't. I don't like lying down. When I was a kid, I hated going to bed at night. When I went to camp as a kid, they had that rule, and after lunch you had to lie down for an hour. Man, my body was lying down, but everything else was standing up. I'm not a liar downer. But sometimes God comes along and he makes us lie down. Because we know we have to have a rhythm to life. We know we have to have a pace. And if we're not resting, we're not following. If you and I are go, 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 go from morning to night, we're not running under the shepherd's will. We're sheep who've left his pasture. Because if we walk with him, he builds rest into our lives. We have a shepherd who lays us down. We have a shepherd who feeds us all the way. I like this. It doesn't matter whether it's my stomach or my soul, he feeds it. It doesn't matter whether it's my emotions or my mind or whatever. He's feeding it all the time. And I may live in a desert, but he knows where to find the grass. He knows where it's rained recently and where it's lush. And he takes me there. And he takes me to the quiet waters. And if it's something my body needs, he gives it to me. And if it's my soul that's hungering and thirsting for righteousness, he feeds me with that too. Incredible shepherd. We have a shepherd who leads us all the way. Now, I'll date myself, but if you go back to, I think, the 60s, there were a bunch of songbooks that were produced called Favorites 1, Favorites 2, Favorites 3, whole bunch of them. We had the lot. And I think in Favorites 4, we had this song, Jesus Led Me All the Way. It's about a person who's lived a life down here, and he's gone to heaven, and now he's looking back. And he's realizing that the shepherd led him all the way. Half the time we don't know when God's leading us. We're not aware of it. He's just gently moving us. We're not aware. Once in a while something happens that's special and we're aware of it. But most of the time it's no big deal. But when we get to heaven and we look back and we see it for what it really was, we're going to say, wow, it is a big deal. Jesus led me all the way, step by step each day. I will tell the saints and angels as I lay my burdens down. Jesus led me all the way. And you can be really thankful this morning because I'm not singing it for you. We got a shepherd who protects us all the way. Maybe you're here this morning and you think that some guy who loves sheep and gets them following him around must be kind of a wimp. He's not a real man. Real men don't do that. I got news for you. He's a real man. He's armed. He's got a rod and a staff and a slingshot. And those are not just adornments. He knows how to use them. He is skilled. He has practiced them out. When you're looking after sheep, there's many afternoons where it's kind of boring along. You got lots of practice time. And he knows. And a bear comes. He's not afraid. I'm going to get lunch. And the shepherd looks at the bear and says, don't you mess with my sheep. And the next thing you know, that bear's got two blank eyes that see nothing. Same with a lion. You don't mess with him. He loves his sheep. He will protect them. We got a shepherd who disciplines us all the way. Do you like discipline? You get up there in the morning and say, oh good, I'm going to get some discipline today. And we hate it. When I tell you what the shepherd does to discipline, you're going to say to me, you got to be kidding. He wouldn't do that, would he? Every once in a while you get a sheep that's born, a lamb, and it's got a mind of its own. Some of you had kids like that. Mind of its own. There is nothing you can do to make that kid stay. I mean, it's off like a shot. It's out of sight. It's lost. You're out looking for it. The next day, you're out looking for it again, and you can't get anywhere with it. So when a shepherd gets a sheep that's just will not learn, he grabs it under an arm and he takes his rod. It's a short stick, about 12 inches long and about this big around. It's like a billy club that a London Bobby hangs from his belt. And he takes that rod and he wraps the back of the leg, the knee joint, and he breaks it. Then he splints it. Very tenderly and very carefully. And he splints it in such a way that that little lamb can't get up and walk. It's stuck at his feet for the next 6 weeks. No, it's hard on the lamb, but it's hard on the shepherd. All the other sheep go and get their grass. He's got to get the grass and bring it to the sheep. All the other sheep go to the stream and they get their water. He's got to take his bowl, fill it with water, and bring it to the lamb. Day after day, he's looking after that sheep. And for 6 weeks, that lamb is never away from him. If the sheep move, the shepherd picks up the lamb and carries it. What begins to happen over 6 weeks? Huh? What begins to happen? They start to fall in love. That little sheep starts to appreciate the shepherd. At the end of 6 weeks, the shepherd tenderly reaches down and he undoes the splints. And he sets its lamb up on its feet, and it's wobbly. And it's not on its feet long before it wants to rest. But after a few days, its energy is up and it can go. And it's free to go wherever it wants to go. And some little lambs never learn. And they just take off. And the shepherd lets it go. But most lambs, by the time they've gone through this process, have learned to love the shepherd. And they will never leave him. It's an amazing thing. He disciplines us because he wants to build a relationship with us. Isn't that amazing? He wants to become close to us. Then we got a shepherd who takes us all the way. We have dogs. A lot of us have dogs. And some of you have farm dogs. My brother-in-law has farm dog. Lovely dog. Outside. He smells like the barn on legs. They don't want him inside. He doesn't want to be inside. He'd rather sleep in the garage or in the barn. If it's really, really, really cold, they will let him in the house. But then there's dogs like my dog. He's a house dog, which means he's a spoiled brat. All right? And you understand that we're house sheep? We get to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God has prepared a place for us. We're His sheep. He's not going to leave us or forsake us. He's going to take us so that where He is, we may be also. He's got a place for us. And I love thinking about it. He's preparing a place for me. I talk about funerals like, we believe in the resurrection. It's fantastic. Fantastic. God's preparing a place. How much money does God have? What's His budget? How much power does He have to put into it? How much time? Man, it's going to be someplace. And He's preparing it for us. Because that's the kind of shepherd He is. And how does He do it? How does He do it? He does it without a single foot of fencing. He does it with a big heart. God bless you.
It is our desire to encourage you through this program. If you do not yet belong to a church, we'd love to have you come and connect with us. We have programs for all ages. Or if you have been blessed through our service, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us during regular office hours by phone, or you can email us. Thank you for watching our service. May God bless you.